The sharp crack of the energy whip made Zuri flinch. She kept her head down, her blue fingers working quickly through the dark rocks. 15 years of slavery had taught her when to be invisible. Faster, growled Grath, the reptilian overseer. His scaled skin glistened in the dim light of the mines. Production quotas doubled today. Zuri said nothing. Speaking without permission meant punishment. Her slender fingers, once used for creating beautiful art, now bled from hours of digging for precious dilithium crystals. The raw minerals powered the vast ships of the Vicarian Imperium, the reptilian empire that had conquered her peaceful world. The mining cavern of Nexus 7 stretched wide around her, filled with hundreds of slaves from a dozen different worlds. Blue-skinned Kilari, like herself, worked alongside furry Motari and the tree-like Arbori. All shared the same empty eyes of beings who had lost hope. Zuri was different from other Kilari. She had the gift, the ability to sense emotions and physical states. It was both blessing and curse. It helped her avoid the worst guards and know when Grath was in a dangerous mood. But it also meant she felt the pain and despair of everyone around her. A young Kilari male 2 tunnels over was sick. Zuri could feel his fever burning. She closed her eyes briefly, sending calming thoughts his way. If the guards noticed his illness, they would kill him for being useless. "You there, blue girl," Grath shouted. "Stop daydreaming." Zuri quickly returned to her work, ignoring the burning in her muscles. The small light on her helmet barely cut through the darkness as she searched for the telltale gleam of dilithium. Suddenly, the ground shook. Not unusual in the unstable mines, but this tremor felt different. Rocks began falling from the ceiling. Slaves cried out, scrambling for safety. "Keep working," the guards shouted, but it was too late. A section of the tunnel collapsed. Dust filled the air. When it cleared, Zuri saw 5 slaves trapped under rubble, moaning in pain. She rushed forward without thinking, her healer instincts taking over. "Get back to work," Grath hissed, grabbing her arm. "These ones are finished. But they can be saved," Zuri said, instantly regretting breaking the rule of silence. Grath raised his whip. "They are no longer useful. The mines have decided." "Ready the disintegrators," ordered another guard, pulling out a weapon. No waste of resources on the dying. Zuri's heart sank. This was the way of the Vicarians. Anything without use was destroyed. Then she felt something new, a strange presence, unlike any she had sensed before. Different emotions, shock, confusion, and something rare in this place, compassion. A loud mechanical noise echoed through the cavern. The guards turned, weapons ready. Through the main tunnel came a human male. Zuri had heard stories of humans, but never seen one. This one had light brown skin and dark hair. He wore a simple gray flight suit with patches and scorch marks. "Hey there," the human said, raising his hands when he saw the weapons. "Sorry to drop in. My ship had a nav malfunction, made an emergency landing topside. Name's Jack Palmer. I'm just looking for some repair materials." The guards looked confused. Humans were new to this sector of space. The Vicarian Imperium had not yet decided how to deal with them. Jack's eyes moved from the guards to the wounded slaves, then to the disintegrator weapon. His face changed. "What's going on here?" he asked, his voice harder. "Trade business," Grath said. "Move along, human." Jack didn't move. Instead, he stared at the injured slaves. "These people need medical attention." "They are not people," said the guard. "They are property." Zuri felt a surge of anger from the human, pure and powerful. Then, surprisingly, he felt her awareness touching his mind. His eyes found hers, widening slightly. In that moment, something passed between them. Understanding. Connection. "I think," Jack said slowly, "we need to talk." Grath stepped forward, hand on his weapon. "There is nothing to discuss. Leave now, human." But Zuri knew with sudden clarity that everything was about to change. Jack Palmer had seen many strange things since leaving Earth, but nothing like this. The blue-skinned woman with glowing marks on her face stared at him with desperate hope. Around her, other aliens of different shapes and colors cowered as the reptile guards threatened them. "I said move along, human," Grath repeated, his clawed hand resting on his weapon. Jack didn't move. Growing up in Wyoming had taught him stubbornness. "Those injured need help. I have medical supplies on my ship." The reptile guards looked at each other, confused by his behavior. Slaves were tools, not beings who needed care. "Commander Drelk will handle this," Grath finally said into his wrist device. Jack used this moment to step closer to the injured aliens. One had a crushed leg. Another was bleeding from the head. His stomach turned at their suffering. Suddenly, a voice spoke in his mind. "Asterisk, please. Help us, asterisk." Jack looked up, startled. The blue woman was watching him intently. Her eyes glowed slightly. "Asterisk, I am Zuri. My people are telepathic. Speaking this way is forbidden, but I sense you are different, asterisk." Jack gave a tiny nod, trying to hide his shock. "Asterisk, the Vicarians will kill the injured. It is their way. Anything that cannot work is destroyed, asterisk." Before Jack could respond, heavy footsteps approached. A larger reptilian entered, wearing elaborate armor with skull-like designs. The other guards straightened immediately. "Commander Drelk," Grath said, "this human landed without permission and is interfering with slave discipline." Drelk looked Jack over with cold yellow eyes. "Humans, your kind are new to space. You do not yet understand the ways of the galaxy." Jack stood his ground. "I understand enough. Where I come from, we don't treat people this way." "These are not people," Drelk said simply. "They are property of the Vicarian Imperium. Their planet resisted us. This is the price." Jack felt his hands curl into fists, but kept his voice calm. "My ship has an emergency medical kit. Let me treat the injured." "Why waste resources?" Drelk asked, genuinely puzzled. "Because where I come from, all life has value." Drelk made a sound like stones grinding together, a Vicarian laugh. "Primitive thinking. This is why humans are not yet important in galactic matters." "Asterisk, be careful, asterisk," Zuri's voice warned in his mind. "Asterisk, he can have you killed with a word, asterisk." Jack knew she was right, but couldn't walk away. He thought quickly. "I'd like to learn more about your mining operation," he said. "Earth needs minerals too. Maybe we could trade." This caught Drelk's interest. "Trade? What does Earth offer?" "I have samples aboard my ship, and I could use a guide who knows the local area. Perhaps." He gestured toward Zuri, trying to seem casual. "I could borrow this one." Zuri felt her heart race. Was this human trying to help her? Drelk considered. The blue female. She is just a digger. She seems intelligent. Could translate local customs for me. Asterisk, what are you doing? Asterisk, Zuri asked in his mind. Asterisk, trying to get you out of here, asterisk, Jack thought back, hoping she could hear. Very well, Drelk finally said. You may borrow this slave during your stay. But the injured are useless and will be disposed of. Jack shook his head. How about this? Let me treat them. If they recover, they work again. If not, you lose nothing. And why would a human care about slave stock? Drelk asked suspiciously. Jack thought fast. Waste not, want not. Another Earth saying. Drelk considered, then nodded. You have strange ideas, human. But I am curious about Earth goods. You may treat these slaves. The blue female will accompany you. She is bound by control chip to obey. If you try to leave with her, it will kill her. Relief flooded through Jack, though he tried not to show it. I'll get my medical kit. As he turned to leave, Zuri's voice whispered in his mind. Asterisk, no human has ever helped a slave before. Why would you risk yourself, asterisk? Jack didn't answer aloud, but his thought was clear in his mind. Asterisk, because it's the right thing to do, asterisk. For the first time in 15 years, Zuri felt something new bloom inside her chest. Jack's small cargo ship sat on a flat rock area not far from the mine entrance. Zuri followed him up the ramp, her steps hesitant. In 15 years, she had never been allowed inside any building except slave quarters and mines. "Welcome aboard the Starling," Jack said, watching her eyes grow wide at the cramped but clean interior. "This is yours. All of it?" she asked, forgetting to use telepathy in her amazement. Jack nodded. "It's not much, but it gets me around." He pulled a large white box from a storage compartment. "Let's help those injured folks first." As they walked back to the mine, Zuri studied him. "Why do you care about slaves? No other species does." Jack frowned. "On Earth, slavery ended long ago. We learned it was wrong to own people. The Vicarians say humans are weak because you care too much. Is caring about others weak?" Jack asked. Zuri had no answer. The idea was new to her. Back at the mine, Jack knelt beside the injured slaves. His gentle hands cleaned wounds and applied bandages and healing gel. The slaves watched him with confusion and fear. "Tell them I'm trying to help," Jack said to Zuri. She translated in the common slave language. Slowly, the injured began to relax under Jack's care. Commander Drelk watched from a distance, his yellow eyes narrowed. "Strange behavior," he muttered to Grath. "Wasting time on damaged property." Jack worked for an hour, fixing what he could. One slave with a crushed leg would never walk properly again, but the others would recover. "They can work tomorrow," Jack told Drelk. "Maybe not at full strength, but they're not wasted." Drelk made the grinding sound of Vicarian laughter. "Perhaps there is wisdom in your strange ways. Now, you mentioned trade goods." Jack led them back to his ship. From a storage box, he pulled out several packages. Coffee beans, chocolate, spices from Earth. The Vicarians sniffed the items, their tongues flicking out to taste the air. "Interesting," Drelk said, his voice slightly different. "We will analyze these." "Consider them gifts," Jack said, "a sample of what Earth trade could offer." After the Vicarians left with the samples, Jack sealed the ship's door and turned to Zuri. "Are we alone?" he asked quietly. She nodded. "But they have monitors everywhere. And my control chip." "Hold still," Jack said. He ran a small device over her neck, where a tiny metal bump showed under her skin. The device beeped. "Just as I thought. Basic transponder with pain circuits. Primitive tech. Can you?" Zuri hardly dared hope. "Not yet," Jack said. "If I remove it now, they'll know. But I can block the signal temporarily." He adjusted the device and pressed it against her neck. "There. For now, you're free to speak openly." Tears filled Zuri's eyes. "Why help me? You risk much." "Because it's wrong what they're doing to you." Jack sat at the small table in the ship's kitchen area. "Tell me everything. How many slaves? Security systems, ship movements." Zuri hesitated. "If they catch us planning." "They won't," Jack promised. "But I need to understand what we're dealing with. There's something you should know. Earth isn't officially aware of what's happening in this sector yet, but soon we'll have a diplomatic presence here." "Diplomacy won't stop the Vicarians," Zuri said. "They only understand power." Jack smiled slightly. "Here's something interesting I discovered while scanning your chip. Humans have a unique brain pattern. Your telepathy works on us, but their control technology doesn't affect us the same way." Zuri's eyes widened. "That's why you resist them so easily. The Vicarians use mind influence to make other species fearful and obedient. And it doesn't work on humans," Jack nodded. "Which means, if humans came in numbers, the Vicarians couldn't control them," Zuri finished, true hope in her voice for the first time. Jack reached across the table and gently took her hand. "First things first. Let's get you truly free. Then we can think about the others." Far above Nexus 7, a small Earth diplomatic vessel changed course. On its bridge, Captain Lisa Bennett frowned at the emergency beacon signal they had just detected. "Plot a course," she ordered. "Let's find out what happened to our missing cargo pilot." Morning came to Nexus 7 with the harsh buzz of mining alarms. But today was different for Zuri. Instead of the dark mines, she stood in Commander Druk's office beside Jack. "I want to buy her," Jack said simply. Druk's yellow eyes blinked slowly. "The slave is not for sale." Jack placed a small bag on the desk. When opened, rich brown powder spilled out. The smell of coffee filled the room. Druk's tongue flicked out, tasting the air. "I need a translator and guide while I'm in this sector," Jack continued. "She knows the local systems." "There are official channels for acquiring property," Druk said, but his eyes never left the coffee. Jack added another package. "Chocolate. Earth goods for Vicarian convenience. Simple trade." Zuri stood perfectly still, barely breathing. Inside, her mind raced. Was this human really trying to buy her freedom? After what seemed like forever, Druk nodded. "The slave production numbers are acceptable but not exceptional. The trade is fair." Jack kept his face calm, but Zuri could feel this flash of disgust at how easily her life was valued. "Documentation?" Jack asked. Druk pressed his scaled hand to a screen. A small card emerged. "Ownership transfer is complete." Back aboard the Starling, Jack tore up the card. "You're not property," he said firmly. "You're free." Zuri stared at the pieces. "Free?" The word felt strange in her mouth. "The control chip is still a problem," Jack said. "If we try to leave the system with it active, it could hurt you." "I know someone," Zuri said hesitantly. "A slave who works in medical. He might help." Jack nodded. "First, we need to contact my people." He activated the ship's communication system. "We'll boost the emergency beacon. If Lisa's ship is nearby, she'll find us." "Who is Lisa?" "Captain Bennett. We train together. She commands a diplomatic vessel." Jack smiled. "She's probably worried sick about me by now." Zuri sat across from Jack at the small table. "Even if I'm free, what about the others? My family, my friends." Jack reached across, touching her hand gently. "That's why we need Lisa. Her ship carries official Earth representatives. If they witness the slavery here, they can bring it to the Galactic Council." Hope flickered in Zuri's eyes. "The Vicarians ignore the Council's rules." "But they care about trade," Jack said. "Earth won't trade with slavers. Other worlds might follow." Together, they formed a plan. Jack would smuggle communication devices to the slave quarters. Zuri would use her telepathic abilities to spread the word. When Lisa's ship arrived, the slaves would stage a work stoppage. Not a violent uprising that would lead to bloodshed, but a peaceful protest that would disrupt the mining operation. "My people have a secret network," Zuri explained. "We communicate telepathically when guards aren't watching. We can spread the message." Jack listened, impressed by their resistance despite years of oppression. "You've been fighting all along, haven't you?" "Surviving," Zuri corrected. "Not fighting. We had no hope of winning." "Until now," Jack said. Zuri studied him curiously. "Why do humans care so much about others?" "The Vicarians say it makes you weak." Jack smiled. "Where I come from, we believe caring for others makes us stronger. My grandfather used to say, 'Lift others up, and you all rise higher.'" The concept was new to Zuri. In the brutal world of slavery, looking out for yourself was often the only way to survive. "What is Earth like?" she asked softly. Jack described blue oceans and green forests, cities where different races lived together, and laws that protected all people's rights. "Not perfect," he admitted. "We've made plenty of mistakes, but we try to do better." As they talked, the ship's sensors beeped. Jack checked the screen and smiled. "Lisa's ship is in the system. She's received our signal." Hope and fear mixed in Zuri's heart. Soon they would know if their plan could work, or if her brief taste of freedom would end in disaster. Night fell over the mining complex. Jack moved quietly along the shadows of the storage buildings, a bag of small communication devices hidden under his jacket. Zuri had returned to the slave quarters, pretending nothing had changed. She would distribute the devices once he delivered them. As Jack neared the meeting point, he heard voices. He ducked behind a large container and listened. "The human is causing trouble," said a voice with the distinctive Vicarian hiss. "Don't worry," replied another voice, human, with a deep American accent. "I'll handle Palmer. He's just a cargo pilot who got lost." Jack peered around the corner. In the dim light stood Commander Drelk and a tall human man wearing expensive clothes. "This cannot interfere with our arrangement, Wells," Drelk said. "Your company promised mining equipment in exchange for exclusive rights." "Frank Wells Enterprises always delivers," the human replied smoothly. "No one from Earth needs to know about your labor practices." Jack's stomach dropped. Another human already knew about the slavery and was helping the Vicarians for profit. "What about the diplomatic vessel entering our system?" Drelk asked. Wells laughed. "Captain Bennett is following standard first contact protocols. She'll deal with your government officials, not come down to the mines." Jack backed away carefully. He needed to warn Zuri. But as he turned, his foot kicked a small rock. The sound echoed in the quiet night. What was that? Drelk's head snapped toward Jack's hiding place. Jack ran. Behind him, he heard shouts and the whine of energy weapons charging. He ducked behind buildings, trying to reach his ship. Too late. Guards blocked the path. Jack changed direction, heading for the slave quarters instead. He had to reach Zuri. Meanwhile, in the crowded barracks, Zuri sat with her eyes closed, reaching out with her mind to the others. Carefully, she told them about Jack's plan, about the hope of freedom. Some didn't believe her. Others were too afraid. But many listened. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the complex. Guards rushed into the barracks. "The blue female," one shouted. "Take her." Rough hands grabbed Zuri. She struggled but couldn't break free. The guards dragged her outside where Drelk waited with the human called Wells. "Your friend has been caught spying," Drelk told her. "Conspiring against the Imperium is punishable by death." Fear gripped Zuri's heart. "Where is Jack?" Wells stepped forward, studying her with cold eyes. "Palmer is being held aboard his own ship. You, however, will serve as an example." Drelk nodded to his guards. "Public execution at dawn. Let all slaves witness what happens to those who dream of freedom." As the guards took her away, Zuri reached out with her mind, desperately searching for Jack. She found him, his thoughts filled with worry for her and anger at Wells. Asterisk, "They're going to execute me at dawn," asterisk, she sent to him. Asterisk, "I'll find a way to stop it," asterisk, came his determined reply. Asterisk, "Don't give up," asterisk. In her cell, Zuri sat with her back against the cold wall. With nothing left to lose, she did something forbidden. She extended her empathic abilities fully, seeking to understand her captors. When she touched Drelk's mind, she gasped. Behind his cruelty lay fear, deep, ancient fear. Images flashed in her mind. The Vicarian homeworld burning, their numbers reduced to thousands, the desperate choice to conquer or be destroyed. The Vicarians enslaved others because they themselves had nearly been wiped out. Their cruelty was born from terror of extinction. The realization changed nothing about her situation, but it gave Zuri understanding. The Vicarians weren't monsters. They were survivors who had chosen a monstrous path. Dawn approached. In her cell, Zuri prepared herself for what might be her last day. But somewhere in the complex, Jack was fighting to save her. And above them all, a human diplomatic ship had entered orbit, unaware of the drama unfolding below. Freedom seemed further away than ever, yet somehow, hope remained. Dawn painted the sky orange over Nexus 7. In the central mining plaza, Vicarian guards built a raised platform. Soon, Zuri would be brought there to die. Aboard the Starling, Jack tested the restraints holding him to his own pilot's chair. The guards had been careless, using simple metal cuffs instead of energy bonds. They didn't understand human determination. Ship systems, Jack whispered. Emergency protocol, Charlie 7. A small panel opened in the armrest. Inside was a thin metal tool. Jack smiled grimly. The Vicarians hadn't found his hidden emergency release. Working quickly, he freed himself and accessed the ship's communication system. He had to contact Lisa's vessel before it was too late. Earth Diplomatic Ship Horizon. This is cargo pilot Jack Palmer. Emergency situation. Respond immediately. Static. Then a woman's voice. Jack, thank goodness. We've been looking for you for days. Lisa, listen carefully, Jack said urgently. The Vicarians are slavers. They've enslaved multiple species. They're about to execute someone to hide the truth from you. Silence. Then, that's a serious accusation, Jack. I'm sending visual evidence now. Jack transmitted the images he'd secretly recorded. While you're conducting diplomatic meetings, they're planning to kill my friend. In orbit, Captain Lisa Bennett viewed the images with growing horror. This violates every principle of the Galactic Charter. The Vicarians have a human partner, Jack added. Frank Wells. He's been supplying them with Earth technology in exchange for mining rights. Lisa's voice hardened. I'll contact Vicarian High Command immediately. But Jack, don't do anything rash. We need to handle this through proper channels. They're executing Zuri at sunrise, Jack replied. Diplomacy might be too slow. Meanwhile, in the slave quarters, something remarkable was happening. The communication devices Jack had smuggled in before his capture were working. Word spread from barracks to barracks. For the first time, slaves of different species coordinated their actions. As guards came to escort slaves to the mines, they found empty bunks. The slaves had gathered in the central area, sitting silently, refusing to move. Work now, shouted a guard, cracking his energy whip. No one moved. The slaves sat in perfect stillness, their eyes downcast but their spirits united. In the confusion, a small Kalari child slipped away, carrying a key card stolen from a distracted guard. The child made her way to the detention area where Zuri waited. When her cell door suddenly opened, Zuri thought her execution time had come. Instead, the small blue face of a child appeared. Hurry, the child whispered. The others are waiting. Zuri followed the child through service tunnels that small slaves used to reach tight mining spaces. They emerged near the mining plaza, where hundreds of slaves now sat in silent protest. Vicarian guards surrounded them, weapons ready. Commander Drelk paced furiously, issuing threats that no one heeded. What's happening? Zuri asked an older Kalari. We are saying no, he replied simply. All of us together. Frank Wells stood beside Drelk, his face red with anger. This is costing me millions. Do something. If we kill them all, who will mine? Drelk hissed. At that moment, Jack Palmer pushed through the crowd. Somehow, he had escaped and made his way here. His eyes found Zuri's, and relief washed over his face. It's working, he said as he reached her. Lisa has contacted Vicarian High Command. They're in emergency session now. A Vicarian officer approached Drelk, looking nervous. Commander, we have received orders from Central Authority. The human diplomatic vessel has shared evidence of our methods. They demand all executions be halted immediately. Drelk's scales darkened with rage. This is local jurisdiction. The orders come from the highest authority, the officer insisted. The humans threaten economic sanctions against our entire empire. As they argued, Wells pulled out a hidden weapon. I won't lose everything because of some bleeding heart diplomacy. He aimed at Jack. Zuri saw the movement and threw herself forward, pushing Jack aside as energy fire erupted. The blast missed them both but struck the platform, sending wood splintering in all directions. Guards tackled Wells, taking him down. In the confusion, Jack pulled Zuri to safety behind a building. This isn't over, he told her, but now we have a chance. Above them, more ships entered orbit. The revolution had begun. not with violence, but with the simple power of saying no. 3 days passed in tense waiting. The slaves continued their peaceful protest, sitting in silent resistance. The mines remained still. No crystals were dug. No quotas were met. The Vicarian economy began to feel the pressure. Lisa Bennett's diplomatic ship, the Horizon, now hovered visibly in the sky above the mining complex. 2 more Earth vessels had joined it. Their presence was both protection and promise. Inside the main Vicarian administration building, Jack and Lisa sat across from Commander Drelk and 3 officials from Vicarian Central Authority who had arrived by emergency transport. Zuri sat beside Jack, still hardly believing she was included in such important talks. "The evidence is clear," Lisa said firmly. "Slavery violates the galactic charter that your empire signed 50 years ago." "These are prisoners of war," argued one Vicarian official. "Conquered peoples, who have served their sentences many times over," Jack countered. "Some have been enslaved for generations." The lead Vicarian, Senior Commander Visk, tapped his clawed fingers on the table. Unlike Drelk, his scales were pale with age and wisdom. "What does Earth demand?" he asked directly. Lisa's answer was simple: freedom for all slaves, immediately. The Vicarians hissed in protest. "Impossible. Our economy would collapse." "Then collapse it will," Lisa said. "Earth will not trade with slavers. We've already contacted 17 other free worlds who agree." Zuri watched the Vicarians carefully. Using her empathic ability, she felt their fear and uncertainty. They truly believed they needed slaves to survive. "May I speak?" she asked quietly. All eyes turned to her. A slave addressing high officials was unheard of. "I have sensed your minds," she told the Vicarians. "I know why you enslave others. You fear extinction. Your people nearly died out before you became conquerors." The Vicarians stared at her in shock. "But look what slavery has cost you," Zuri continued. "You've created an empire that depends on fear and pain. There is another way." "What way?" Visk asked. "Partnership," Jack said, understanding what Zuri meant. "Hire workers. Pay them fairly. Create allies instead of slaves. Let us build together instead of serving under threat." Zuri added, "My people were great engineers before you conquered us. The Motari were legendary farmers. The Arbori, masterful scientists. Think what we could create together as equals." Silence filled the room as the Vicarians considered her words. Finally, Visk spoke. "It would take years to change our entire system." "Then start today," Lisa said. "Sign our agreement. Free the slaves. Earth will help with the transition." After more hours of tense negotiation, the agreement was signed. All slaves on Nexus 7 would be immediately freed. Other planets would follow within 1 standard year. Earth would provide transition assistance and technology. As the sun set, Jack and Zuri stood on a hill overlooking the mining complex. Below them, former slaves celebrated their first night of freedom. Some wept. Others sang songs not heard in public for decades. "What will you do now?" Jack asked her. "You can come to Earth if you want." Zuri looked at the stars appearing in the purple sky. "My people need me here. This freedom is new and fragile. There is much work to do." Jack nodded, understanding but disappointed. But she added with a smile, "I would like to see these oceans and forests you spoke of. Perhaps I could be an ambassador for my people." "I'd like that," Jack said softly. "Why did you do it?" Zuri asked. "Risk everything for people you didn't know." Jack thought for a moment. "On Earth, we have a saying, 'No one is free while others are oppressed.' I couldn't walk away once I saw what was happening here." Zuri's hand found his, her blue fingers entwining with his human ones. "You taught me that freedom isn't just about breaking chains. It's about building something better together." Below them, the celebration continued as former slaves began their first night as free people. Above them, stars promised new beginnings, and between them, a bridge had formed. between two species, two worlds, and two hearts that had found each other across the stars.